You know, I'm notorious for my love of gray characters. And one of the grayest characters in the entire history of Westeros is Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince. He's a very colorful and unpredictable character, and I think he has to rank up there as my favorite.
Daemon not only recognized Rhaenyra as queen, but he placed his brother's crown on her head at the end of season 1. It was a satisfying conclusion to the initial arcs for both characters, and it looked like the perfect setup for season 2, where in Fire and Blood, both Daemon and Rhaenyra are on the same page at the start of the war. But Condal and Hess had different ideas. For contrived drama, they forced in a fight between Rhaenyra and her husband that sent Daemon spiraling into a pointless and at one point even disturbing side quest, plunging his character into oblivion. It stripped away the essence of what made Daemon great in season 1 and dropped in a lifeless facsimile upon us. He finished in the same place at the end of the second season as he was in season 1. So why did they do this? Matt Smith's portrayal of Daemon was one of the highlights of the show. Fans enjoyed his character, and he provided us with some much-needed levity.
Will have your tongue for that.
He can keep his tongue.
Humor was something that made the early seasons of Game of Thrones great. Matt Smith was one of the few that delivered in that regard on House of the Dragon, so when they turned him into a zombie, the show became more dour and joyless. But you can better understand what happened to Daemon when you look back at these comments made by Sara Hess toward the end of season 1. He's become internet boyfriend in a way that baffles me, said Hess. Not that Matt isn't incredibly charismatic and wonderful, and he's incredible in the role, but Daemon himself, I don't want him to be my boyfriend. I'm a little baffled. I'm just like, really? How and what way was he a good partner, father, or brother to anybody? You got me. He ain't Paul Rudd. And Sara sure ain't David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, who brought us such interesting, flawed characters that viewers came to love and enjoy, even though, guess what, Sara? Most of them were terrible people. I love what David Chase had to say about how bothered he was by those who wanted to see Tony Soprano die at the end of the show. Chase said, I just thought, God, you watched this guy for 7 years, and I know he's a criminal, but don't tell me you don't love him in some way. Don't tell me you're not on his side in some way. This shows Chase's passion for his characters, no matter what they did on screen, and why he created one of the greatest shows in TV history and brought characters to life on screen in a way that Sara Hess will never be able to do. You can't be narrow-minded as a writer. You must understand the psyche of characters, good, bad, and somewhere in between, and not force your own personal ideology into the story in a heavy-handed way when you're adapting someone else's work. And that's why Hess and Condal's ambivalence towards Daemon ruined the character this season. They took his agency away. The man of action and of a quick quip became a shadow of his former self. He couldn't even concentrate when others were talking to him. Someone might jump in here and say, wait, it was the purpose of the visions. And I'll get to how terribly delivered all that was in a bit, but if you want to work in visions, then have them haunt him at night, but by day he's himself and taking action in the Riverlands. But no, they had to strip away his attributes. This scene where he's just pathetically sitting on a rock sums up his season and the goodwill Ryan and Sara lost with a good portion of the fan base. And you can't say that the bizarre, lengthy vision of Daemon having sex with his mother wasn't put in there to tear down his character and make people disgusted with him. Aside from that disturbing low point, we go through pointless visions that rehash old season 1 themes that were largely addressed when Daemon accepted Rhaenyra as queen, both in the show and in Fire and Blood, which they rarely used to match Martin's intent. And while there was an effort to bring down Daemon, we can't underestimate the role of incompetence, too.
And while I don't think that anybody could ever be asked to believe that he would turn against Rhaenyra and go to war against her, I think we could all believe that maybe Daemon would just go and claim the throne for himself and then see what happens.
Claim the throne for himself and see what happens? You mean like Aegon did? Ryan seriously believes that Daemon wouldn't know that means war?
I think you've got to start wondering, what the hell is this plot?
It was annoying how they threw in the Long Night and White Walker's vision in the finale. First off, since this point was their Harrenhal endgame, they needed to lead into it, with Daemon's previous visions revolving around that threat, the North, Aegon the Conqueror's prophecy, and other factors surrounding it. Instead, this was all wedged in as a surprise moment. But like Dan and Dave before them, you just can't parachute stuff in without adequate buildup. A surprise isn't a good surprise if there isn't a pretext or character development that leads to the moment. It's just inorganic and stupid. Besides, the old Daemon wouldn't be swayed by one vision, particularly since in the same episode, he said that the place will have you howling at the moon. This is the character saying, don't trust Harrenhal, but then later he does. Inserting Helena into this mess just doubled down on the surreal nature of the scene, and it just takes you completely out of the moment. She's now talking to the man who had her son killed and giving him life advice. Helena suddenly has the powers at the level of the three-eyed raven, but once again, like with Daemon in the Long Night Vision, there was no lead up. Just throw anything at the wall and see if it sticks. Maybe next season we'll learn Mysaria is a Red Priestess and that post-season 8 Jon has time traveled to save the realm.
I don't want it.
Overall, the destruction of Daemon was half design and half incompetence. Most of the big moments this season were done for artificial drama. Remember this scene where the Riverlands army stood back and waited for Daemon to kneel as if this was some tense moment before they recognized Rhaenyra as queen? The problem is, Condal and Hess don't even remember what they showed in the episode before this.
And I have no love for Daemon Targaryen. He has dishonored himself and the crown with his comportment here. My best course is to defer to the oath my grandsire swore to King Viserys when he named Rhaenyra his heir.
The new Lord Tully made it clear that he and his bannermen are sworn to Rhaenyra, so they'd kneel the moment she entered Harrenhal. There's no question of loyalty here. What are Condal and Hess doing? We can't take anything they present seriously. And this sums up the wasted, foolish arc that they placed Daemon on, only to bring him back at the exact same point he was at the end of Season 1, with the exception being that he's now a hollowed-out core of his original character. It's foolish to believe that the lifelong skeptic on dreams, Daemon, now believes in the Long Night after one vision. But in a show where anything can happen in an instant and character arcs can be defied, like when Alicent gave up her entire family, there are no depths that House of the Dragon can't sink to in this quagmire of bad intentions, poor writing, and unfaithful representation of the source material. So Daemon was destroyed, but in the process, Condal and Hess diminished themselves too and made it clear that the Dance of the Dragons is not a story they're capable of telling. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to hit the like button. If you're interested in more on House of the Dragon and A Song of Ice and Fire, listen to Caraxes and subscribe. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon.